Hey everyone, it's Mark Ferguson with Invest for More. We're back with another real estate investing video. Today I'm talking about how to get the money to buy rental properties. Right now, prices are high, interest rates are high, down payments are high, and if you're just starting out trying to buy rental properties, buy real estate, it can be very, very difficult. So I'm going to go over a few things on buying properties when prices are high, how to find the money, if waiting for a crash is a good idea, if savings is a good idea, investing out of state, refinancing, or just increasing your income. And we'll go over some tips and tricks on all of those. So hopefully you enjoyed that. We love the likes, love the comments, love the shares. Keep those coming as well. I do advice videos like this, but I also show all of my properties. I've got lots of commercial properties, residential properties, flips, businesses, all kinds of crazy stuff that have lots of crazy things going on with them, especially in the last year or so. All right, so the first thing a lot of people are doing right now is they're just waiting, right? They say prices are high, I can't buy a rental property, I'm just gonna wait for it all to crash. And that is probably the worst strategy you can have. Now, not just because I don't think a crash is coming, but even if a crash does come, you should be preparing. You should be working, saving, getting in a good position to buy if the crash does come. Just sitting around doing nothing is not a good strategy. So could a crash come? It's possible. Anything's possible. You can't say 100% no, a crash isn't coming, but the chances are very slim. I've been talking about this for years and years. The last crash we had was the worst crash in the history of the US, except for maybe the Great Depression. Those two were pretty similar. There's only been 4 crashes in the entire United States, in the history of the United States, of a drop of more than 20% in housing prices. 2008, 1930s, the Great Depression, like 1878, 1832, in that range. And all of them were caused by massive oversupply of houses, too many houses on the market, and prices plummeted. Right now, we still have too little inventory. Now, I know people keep saying that, and that's why we keep saying that, because it's very important to know. In 2006, there were 6 million homes for sale. That was before the last crash. Right now, in 2023, there's about 1 million. It was less than that in 2022, the beginning. That's a horrible million, sorry. It's about 1 million houses for sale. There were 6 times more houses for sale in 2006 before that crash. And it's just crazy how few houses there are on the market. And it's really, really hard to have a crash when there is too little supply or an equal amount of supply and demand. Crashes, huge drops in prices come when there's an oversupply. There's too many properties for sale. And with interest rates going up, what we're seeing is building going down significantly, which limits supply even more. And you're seeing existing home sales going down significantly because people who have a 2 or 3% interest rate don't want to sell. Why would they sell if they don't have to? That is limiting inventory. Inventory keeps decreasing, even though interest rates are going up and dropping demand. It's not dropping demand enough, anywhere close to enough to cause a crash, because there's so little inventory. If people really want to buy houses, they're still buying them. We are still selling houses. And it is not a situation where nobody can buy, no one can afford housing. It's a situation where there's so little supply that the people who do want to buy are still keeping prices higher, and the people don't have to sell, right? If you want to crash, the last crash was really caused by banks foreclosing on properties and having all these foreclosures where they wanted to get rid of them. They wanted to sell them as fast as they could. They're willing to take a loss. Most people don't want to take a loss. They won't take a loss. They'll hold on to their properties instead of sell them. So there's really a lot of different reasons why a crash probably won't happen. And even if a crash does happen, it's really, really smart to be in a position to have more money, to take advantage of it, to have good credit, whatever it is, to be able to buy if that crash does happen. And if the crash doesn't happen and you prepare, then you can still continue to buy or buy your first properties, whether a crash happens or not. So this is just really not a good idea. Putting your hopes and dreams on that happening is just probably wasting your time. And something else to consider too is, prices right now, they're around 400,000 median average prices in the US. You see different numbers, different figures for it. Even if there was a 20% crash in real estate, right, in a year even, let's say really, really fast, that'd make prices 320,000. They're still expensive, right? They're not, down to 120,000 or whatever it was during the last crash. They're still going to be really expensive. So hoping to get prices down to 100,000 is really just not going to happen, right? for prices to get that low, the entire economy world is going to have to explode and implode, and we'll have a lot bigger problems than real estate prices. And you're still going to want to be prepared for that situation as well. Okay, so what else can you look at to do to be able to invest in real estate? Saving. That's another one that can help you get there. It's also tricky to do. The problem is we're going to just look at the median price of houses, but we'll talk about other prices too. Let's say, again, you have to put 20% down. We just did the math. $80,000 for a down payment on a rental property you're paying $400,000 for. That's with typical investor financing. Then you have closing costs, other costs. You might have to repair the property a little bit. You probably need $100,000 in cash to buy that rental property. That makes it really, really hard for most people, extremely difficult. And saving up that money is virtually impossible for a lot of people at this point. Maybe they'll make some changes. They'll get to a point where they can make more money, save more money. But right now, for a lot of people, this is a pipe dream, and this is extremely frustrating. So just realize that's not the only way to do it, right? There's other ways to do it. Saving can be a great way to get ahead, spending less on insurance, car payments, whatever it is. But saving will only take you so far and get you so far. So that can be one component of it, but not the one I really want to focus on for this video. Investing out of state. Now we just talked about how the median price is $400,000. Well, you can go to Alabama, Florida, upstate New York, all kinds of places. You can still buy a rental for $100,000. I know that sounds crazy, but you legit can buy rental properties for $100,000. Again, investing out of state is not easy, right? You've really got to do your homework. Really have to be careful what you're buying, where you're buying it, how you're buying it, who you're buying it from, how much work it needs, the rental market, all of those things. It takes work. But I think this is a much more viable option for a lot of people than these top two of saving or just hoping for a crash. Because if you can go to some of these markets that still have $100,000 homes, and if their population is increasing at all, they have decent economies, the chances are they're not going to stay $100,000. It costs so much more to build a house than that right now, right? I mean, where I'm at, it takes about $500,000 to build a house once you consider water, land, construction costs, labor costs. I'm in northern Colorado. In other areas, it's more expensive. In some areas, it might be a little less, right? Are there any houses in your areas that are $300,000 for a brand new house? Maybe a few, but that's kind of what the minimum is in some of the cheapest places of what new houses cost. And so if you think about it, eventually over time, if it costs this much to build a new house and your supply and demand is in balance, prices should eventually rise close to that cost. The replacement cost, the new cost. That's how most products work in a even supply and demand market. The cost is really based off what it costs to produce. And so if you have these really cheap markets like that, you're probably going to be okay. And they're probably going to go up over time. If they happen to be in some of these markets that are really gaining popularity, they could really increase in price quickly until they reach that point where you can build new homes and where the supply and demand will level off. So investing out of state is a viable option, but you really have to do your work. There's a lot of scammers out there, turnkey companies. Not all of them are scammers, but there are some. Other people looking for out-of-state people to unload their junk, right? So make sure you have third parties looking at properties for you. You're seeing the areas yourself. You know the areas, you know how it's going to work, but that is a viable option. I have a really long, massive video on investing out of state I will link to below. So that's one way to do it. Another option is to refinance. This is how I bought my very first rental property. Actually, kind of my first two was I refinanced my personal house. I had bought it for like $210,000. Yes, this was 2009. Things were different then. But I got an amazing deal. I got a smoking deal on this house. It's a foreclosure. I worked really, really hard. It was actually worth like $290, something like that. I refinanced it. I took somewhere around $50,000 in cash out. I used that to buy my first rental property, had some left over for my second rental property. That got me started. So refinancing is a fantastic way to get the money to buy rental properties. Of course, there's always a but, especially right now. Interest rates are crazy, right? So it's like you're in this situation where, oh, I have this equity, my property went up in value, but now interest rates are 6 or 7% instead of 2 or 3%. You think, I just refinanced my house 2 years ago, or I just bought it. I have a 3% interest rate. There's no way I want to refinance it and get a 6 or 7% interest rate. 100% agree, that sucks, but you can do something called a HELOC, home equity line of credit. So if you say you have a $200,000 mortgage at 3%, congratulations, by the way, you did great. And your house is worth, 300,000, something like that. Well, you don't have to just get rid of this mortgage and refinance it. You can get a HELOC for maybe 75,000 or even 50,000, whatever the numbers might be based on local banks, your bank, whatever loan to value they'll give you. And sure, this might be at that 7% rate, but you still kept your 3% rate and you tack this on top of it. This goes along with that loan. You can use it as you wish. If you don't want to use it, you don't pay interest on it. That can be an amazing option to start investing in rental properties if you don't have the money and you need the cash to buy those properties. Now, and one thing I want to mention too is we talked about 400,000 is the median price, and then we talk about $100,000 in other markets. Just because the median price is 400,000 doesn't mean you have to buy properties there. You can go below the median. You can pay 300, maybe 250. If you're really looking for good deals, and you might be able to buy different types of properties too, which we'll talk about here very soon. But refinance, definitely a viable option, and something to look at, especially if you can do a HELOC and not have to refinance out of your low rate. Okay, income. I know everybody says, I wish I made more money, but very few people will do anything about it, right? This is probably the number one way people can save money, make more, get ahead, get the money to buy rental properties. But a lot of people just tell themselves, I've got my job, it's what I make, that's all I've got, I can't do anything more. Well, unlike a crash where you're just kind of hoping for something to happen that's totally out of your control, you have tons of control over your income. Going above and beyond at your job, taking on side hustles, starting a business, changing careers. I know it's hard, I know it's difficult, I know it's tough, but this you have so much control over, and you can only save so much, right? You can only save so much because you're limited by your income. Your income is not limited. Your income is limited by your own beliefs and what you think you can do. So really take a look at this, take a look at your income, see what you can do, can't do. And this is something I really go over in my new course I came out with, my Money Mastery course that I've talked about a little bit, is increasing your income, not just always saving, but focusing on your income, focusing on investing it, focusing on increasing your cash flow. And there's so many different ways to increase your income and do different things and make more money. And that is something a lot of people just assume they can't change, but that is one of the best things you can do. And one thing I'll give you some advice on, figure out what your passions are. What do you really love to do? Is it sports? Is it being outside? Is it, cars? What are your passions? And then figure out how people make money with those passions, right? What do they do? What businesses are there? What side gigs are there? What online opportunities are there to make money with those? And then brainstorm what you can do. Hopefully, if they're your passions, you're an expert, you know a ton about it, you have tons of knowledge. And if you can share that knowledge, you can teach other people how to do it, you can come up with some kind of products, better ways to do things, you can make a ton of money with those passions. And with today's technology and online sales and blogs and YouTube and social media, there's so many ways to do that without losing your main income. It's kind of a side gig. So really think about that. Don't just discount the fact that you can't make any money, you're stuck there. Think about how you can increase that amount. And finally, one thing I told you I would talk about, type of property. Whoops, I can't write very well. We talked about the $400,000 single family home. It needs $80,000 down. So not only is that property really expensive, but the higher in price you go on houses, the more expensive they are, the less cash flow they have, the lower the rents get compared to that purchase price. So buying single family homes that are really expensive is really hard to make money on. It's hard to make them good rentals. In my properties, my rentals when I was buying single family homes were around 100 to 150,000. I love single family. I think they're amazing. I think they're great opportunities to make money. But when they're 400,000, that makes it so much more difficult to make money with them, to invest in them successfully. And even though they're great for me, I still think they're great for a lot of people. They're not great for everyone. They're not great for every market. So what you can do, look at different types of property, multifamily, Commercial. Airbnb, kind of. I'm not a huge fan of Airbnb, but you know, it works for some people. You can have better rent to value ratios. There can be more opportunities. Small commercial, I've done amazing on small commercial properties. When properties in my area were 300,000, I was buying commercial properties for 100,000. The cash flow way better than those $300,000 houses. So if you're trying to get the money to buy rental properties, don't just consider, right, how to get the money, how to save the money, but think about where to buy, what type you're buying, and these other ideas too. And I talk about that much more in depth in a different video too. That I'll link to down below on what type of property the first, you know, as a beginner, you should first buy. So there you go. There's some ideas. If you don't have the money now, you really want to invest in money, here are some things you can do to hopefully get that money, maybe buy a property quicker than you thought you could. And I would not, under any circumstances, just sit back and hope for a crash. Like I said, even if a crash comes, you'll be much better prepared if one does come, if you do these other things and are in a good position to buy. All right, thanks for watching. Love the comments, love the support, love the likes. I have many more videos here coming up soon of my own properties. And we'll have a Meet Kevin video here coming up soon. He came to see some properties with me recently. And of course, we'll have more advice videos too. All right, be back soon.